you really have to pay close attention to race. It's very different. And it's not unfamiliar to us today that many of the racial and class markers are coded on women's bodies. So for African American women, just to make that one contrast, it's really important to think differently about the world that they were confronting around their bodies. For African American women, it's so interesting because it's just post-Civil War, Reconstruction. There's still the basic stereotypes of African American people. People weren't worried about their reproductive system. They were worried about them having too many children, right? The lowly races, they produced too many already, right? And for them, it wasn't so much about them, they're going to undermine their femininity. They didn't have it. So for African American women, the two proofs were, I am feminine. And that goes to the whole argument that scholars talk about the politics of respectability. If I'm feminine, right, and if I claim femininity and womanhood, you have to treat me as though I have femininity, protect me, no sexual violence, right, opportunities, access, I'm a lady. So this, at the very same time that white women are casting off, I'm a lady, African American women, that's a very powerful step for them to take. And they're going to prove that with their bodies by there's all sorts of codes within their student regulations and so forth about how to dress, about hygiene, about diet, that sort of say we can be dignified and restrained and civilized. So it's painful to read in a way because it's sort of, you can see what they're negotiating, but at the same time it's very powerful because when you see them in their beautiful clothes, those first early classes of Spelman women, they're going on and they call it, I'm going to bear the mark of Spelman College. And they're going to go out and they're going to teach in rural areas and urban areas, and they're going to uphold Spelman, and they're going to say, I am a lady, I am dignified, I am intelligent, I have a right to the privileges and the access of American life. So it's a very different set of arguments, but they're still using their bodies and they're still within the college life. So there's very few examples of gym suits that I've seen for black women early in the 1880s, 1890s. You don't really see much of them at all. You do see encouragement for exercise, for walking and so forth. That also speaks to the economic margins for which those institutions are on at that time. I mean, they don't have the resources to create gyms and that kind of thing. I mean, they're just trying to get schoolrooms and things going. So for African American women, it's really that, and it's really trying to prove their dignified womanhood with their bodies. So at the same time, the white women are sort of casting off the corset, African American women are putting it on, and they're putting on this clothing of American womanhood. So it's interesting. You do see gym and you do see exercise and you do see athletics on African American colleges, but not really till post-World War I, where you see a lot more of it. The earlier you see quite a difference between white and black women. By post-World War I, you see a lot more commonality. And I think there's more to be discovered there. I think a lot of the early archives for African American colleges were not kept in the same way they were for white women. We just don't have the same amount of records. So we may find more of that, but in general, the resources and also the ethic, it's not as important for them to prove that. It could be more threatening, right, for them to do that. So for African American women, so it's a sparser record. We don't know for sure, but I really don't think there's much evidence of that so far. And I think what's interesting is the thing that you can say is that both white and black women are taking agency. They're taking the cultural debate on, and they're trying to win that debate to create more access and privileges for themselves with their bodies, with using their bodies in a particular way, with clothing them, with moving them, with caring for them in very particular ways that they know are going to have resonance. I mean, whether conscious or not, they know that if I do these things, if I walk down the street, like Anna Julia Cooper in the 1890s has her famous treatise on African American, feminism, and she says, when and where I can walk with the undisputed quiet dignity of my womanhood, then the whole race enters with me. So there's this sense of, we're taking conscious action, we're doing it with our bodies, and the culture's reading our bodies in this way. So that's where you see it. And the physical space of college life lets both groups do that.